Hi everybody, I'm Shannon. Welcome to the channel. Been putting up these videos, a series of them, on these two small colonies that came from swarms this year, and kind of following them along through the summer. While I'm making those videos where we're actually in there working with the bees, I'll mention things sometimes and say that we'll talk more about that later. Well, I decided to use this time to talk about a couple of those things, and that's the feeding and the foundation. Now, I want to remind you to click like and subscribe and comment in the comment sections, because that's what we put this channel up for, was to try to help new beekeepers. So share information and ask questions in the comment section. We try to reply to them. Might even make a video on some of the questions. And if nothing else, I click the little heart icon to let you know we appreciate your comment. So do those things. It'll help everybody out, I think. But as far as these two colonies goes, the first thing I did was I fed them. I fed them sugar syrup. Now that's something I've said I don't like to do. I don't do very often. And when I do give them sugar syrup, I limit it to about 3 weeks, because the sugar is really not good for the bees. It's not good for us, the processed cane sugar. It's even more so worse for the bees. It weakens their health, weakens their immune system, and does a lot of different things to them. So I try to keep that to a minimum. If you're going to feed bees, the thing a lot of other beekeepers do is when they're harvesting honey, they'll keep a few frames back and they'll put them in the refrigerator or freeze them. And then if the bees get into a little bit of trouble and they need a little extra feeding, they'll just give them those frames with the capped honey. My problem with that is you really shouldn't freeze or refrigerate the honey. So how much damage it's doing to the honey, how good is it for the bees, I can't say. But a better solution would be to feed them honey. Instead of capped honey in the frames, you can put a dish of honey in the top of the hive and let them take it and reprocess it, or partially reprocess it, and put it back in cells and cap it. But even with that, it's best to have honey that you've harvested, or another local beekeeper that you know, or someone from a farmer's market in your area that raises bees locally. You can verify that those bees are being raised in a healthy way, and that's better than going and buying honey from a store. You don't want to buy honey from a store. There's been studies that show that the honey from the stores isn't really what they say it is, and I avoid that. This time I did go ahead with the sugar syrup for the 3 weeks, just to kind of give them a boost and see what that does, and it is working for them. But we've taken that away now and letting them do their thing. That's the best thing, is to let the bees do their thing. Some people believe in this natural beekeeping. They go so far as they don't do anything, and they'll say that if a colony is not storing food and stuff like it should be, that it's a weaker colony and you should let it die off. That may or may not be true, but these are swarms that came in this spring, very small swarms. The bigger of the two is still less than a package of bees. So they're going to spend this whole year getting ready for winter, and getting them through that first winter, to me, is a good thing. You're helping the bees survive, but also you're giving them the benefit of the doubt on that first year, and next year they may be strong enough to do quite well. So that's one of the situations where I feel that the good outweighed the bad, and so we did that. The other thing I've talked a lot about is foundation. I haven't really talked a lot about why, but I've mentioned a lot of times that I don't use foundation, or at least that I don't usually use foundation. When I put frames together, I don't put the foundation in them, but I'll drill holes in the top and the bottom board, and I'll take fishing line, because I fish and re-spool my reels every spring. I'll take the leftover new line and run it through like in a W pattern in that frame, tighten it up and secure it, and that helps support the comb. I don't like the foundation because 2 reasons. One is the cell size. Somewhere along the line somebody got the idea that if you made the cells a little bit bigger, the bees would be a little bit bigger and they'd be a little stronger and they'd harvest more honey. Well, that's proven not to be exactly how they thought it would be. The other thing is those bees have a weaker health, and it also increases problems with varroa mites. You can buy foundation that what they call small cell, but I still just would rather let the bees make the cell sizes the way they want them and go from there. The other problem is the wax. You don't really know where that wax comes from, and you don't know what's in that wax. I've got some colonies here, and I'll be showing some videos as we go along of some old comb that needs to be culled. I'll cull the comb after it gets so old because you don't know where the bees have been going, what kind of chemicals they've been getting into in these commercial crops and these factory farms. So that stuff will build up in the wax and can cause problems, health problems in the hive. So when the comb gets so old, I'll cull it out and let them build new comb. And you know, when you're using wax foundation, you really don't know where that wax comes from. So that's another reason why I don't like foundation. I've also had bees not like foundation. They'd build on empty frames all summer and save a frame with foundation to the very last thing they build on it. So sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not. I guess it just depends on the bees. The other thing about foundation is there's plastic foundation, which I don't use. Same with plastic frames. I've picked up a few here and there in nukes and splits and things, and I get rid of those as quick as I can because that plastic, it gets old in there and it gets weak. And like the plastic frames, those tabs, it'll get old and they'll eventually break off, and that frame can fall down in there and it can squish bees. It makes a big mess to try to clean up. And they say that it off gases, which I believe. How much that affects the bees, I don't know. A wasp around me. How much that affects the bees, I don't know. But off-gassing is off-gassing, and it would be bad. And the plastic frames and the plastic foundations would both do that. And you've got the foundations where they're building comb, burying that foundation, that plastic inside the comb, and it's going to leach out into that wax. So I do avoid the plastic foundation. I get rid of it. Sometimes I will use wax foundation if it's there, if it's already in the frames, but other than that, I don't use it at all. So that's just a couple of things that's why I do what I do. And I'm not saying that my way is 100% the right way. Everybody's got their own ideas and opinions on how to keep bees. They say you ask 10 beekeepers the same question, you get 11 answers. That sounds about right. So what I try to share on this channel is only just trying to help people out and give you some options, some new ideas to think about. You got to do what's right for you and your bees, mostly for your bees, because that's kind of the whole point, helping these bees survive and be productive and everything. But you do what works for you. I'm just trying to share some information on how I feel about things and hope that that helps somebody. And with that, we'll save some more things to talk about next time. Probably going to talk more about inspections. Watch for that. Things to look for when you're doing an inspection. So, yeah, with that, thank you for stopping, and we'll see you next time.